The first Zephyrian attack came without warning against the mining colony on Kepler 442b. Captain Kate Morgan commanded the small defense force protecting 3,000 miners and their families. The Zephyrians expected quick surrender, but they had never fought humans before. Kate watched enemy ships approach through the station viewport, knowing her small garrison could not match their firepower. Instead of preparing for defeat, she began converting the mining station into something the Zephyrians had never encountered before: a mining operation transformed into a deadly trap. The Zephyrian fleet commander transmitted the standard surrender demand, expecting immediate compliance. When Kate refused and cut communications, the alien commander ordered a swift assault to minimize damage to the valuable mining equipment. He wanted to preserve the infrastructure for Zephyrian use. Kate had other plans. She ordered her engineers to overload the mining lasers and redirect them toward space. The massive industrial equipment designed for cutting through asteroids became weapons capable of slicing through enemy hulls. Her people worked frantically to convert every piece of machinery into instruments of war. When the Zephyrian assault ships approached the station, they encountered defensive fire unlike anything in their tactical databases. The mining lasers cut through their shields as if they did not exist. 3 capital ships exploded in brilliant flashes as their power cores were breached by precision strikes. Admiral Vexitar received the battle reports with growing confusion. How could primitive mining equipment destroy his advanced warships? The tactical analysis made no sense according to Zephyrian understanding of human technology. Yet the evidence floated in space as twisted wreckage that had once been his finest vessels. Kate Morgan did not celebrate the victory. Instead, she prepared for the inevitable counterattack. She knew the Zephyrians would return with overwhelming force, but that was exactly what she wanted. Every moment they spent fighting her was time for Earth to prepare their real defenses. The miners worked together with military efficiency that surprised even Kate herself. Families who had never seen combat began building barricades and improvised weapons. Children as young as 12 helped monitor sensor arrays, while elderly colonists shared knowledge of the station layout that proved invaluable for defensive planning. Meanwhile, on Earth, General Rebecca Stone received reports of the Kepler battle with mixed emotions. The loss of life saddened her, but the tactical information proved invaluable. She activated protocols that most humans did not know existed. Deep space manufacturing facilities began producing ships with designs that violated several galactic treaties. The new human vessels incorporated technology reverse-engineered from decades of studying alien debris. Every crashed ship and piece of wreckage had been carefully analyzed by human scientists who learned to adapt alien innovations for human use. What looked like innocent salvage operations had actually been preparation for this moment. Navigator Zexnal served aboard the Zephyrian flagship and began questioning the invasion after reviewing battle footage from Kepler. The humans had not fought like any species in Zephyrian records. Instead of following predictable defensive patterns, they had improvised solutions that turned weaknesses into advantages. Zexnal reported his concerns to Admiral Vexitar, but the commander dismissed them as cowardice. The admiral had conquered too many worlds to doubt his methods now. He ordered increased pressure on human colonies, believing that overwhelming force would break their spirit. The second wave of attacks targeted 5 human outposts simultaneously with much larger fleets. The Zephyrians expected to crush resistance through sheer numbers, but discovered that humans shared information instantly across vast distances. Every tactical lesson learned at one battle immediately benefited defenders everywhere else. Captain Lisa Parker had returned to Earth and now commanded a prototype stealth ship called Shadow Walker. The vessel used technology adapted from Altarian ruins to phase in and out of normal space, making it nearly impossible to detect or target. Her mission was to study Zephyrian tactics and find weaknesses. Lisa observed enemy formations and realized the Zephyrians fought with mathematical precision that made them predictable. Their tactics relied on overwhelming firepower applied through standard formations that had worked against every other species. They could not adapt quickly to unexpected human responses, Dr. Helen Walsh continued, studying the Altarian data and made disturbing discoveries about human psychology under extreme stress. The aliens had documented cases where humans displayed tactical creativity that seemed to violate logical thinking patterns. When faced with impossible odds, humans found solutions that should not have been possible. The research suggested that human brains operated differently during combat stress, activating dormant neural pathways that enhanced problem-solving abilities. The Altarians called this condition berserker protocols, but their data indicated it was far more sophisticated than simple rage or desperation. General Stone implemented new strategies based on the Altarian findings. Human forces began operating in ways that confused Zephyrian tactical computers. Ships would appear to retreat, then strike from impossible angles using routes that should not have existed. Space battles became three-dimensional puzzles that human minds solved instinctively. The Zephyrian Empire faced something they had never encountered before, an enemy that became more dangerous with each battle. Instead of weaker, human defenders learned from every defeat and adapted faster than Zephyrian forces could adjust their methods. Kate Morgan held Kepler Station for 6 more days against increasingly desperate Zephyrian attacks. Her miners had become soldiers, and her station had become a fortress that consumed enemy resources far beyond its apparent value. When she finally evacuated, the station she left behind traps that destroyed 2 more enemy vessels. Admiral Vextar realized too late that every human defeat provided intelligence that benefited other human forces. The species was learning collectively, turning individual losses into shared knowledge that strengthened their overall resistance. The Zephyrians faced an enemy that evolved during warfare. As the second part of the conflict ended, both sides prepared for escalation. The Zephyrians brought larger fleets, while humans activated deeper levels of their hidden capabilities. Neither side yet understood that this war would transform the nature of galactic conflict forever. Captain Nicole Chen commanded the stealth frigate Shadow Walker as it moved unseen through Zephyrian-controlled space. The ship used technology that should not have existed according to galactic science, but human engineers had made impossible. Things work through pure determination and creative thinking. The Shadow Walker could phase between normal space and something else that human scientists called the gray zone. Ships in this state remained invisible to sensors while observing everything around them. Nicole used this advantage to study enemy tactics and identify weaknesses in their formations. Dr. Linda Turner worked in the deep laboratories beneath Earth's surface, developing weapons that violated several natural laws. Her team had spent decades studying alien technology from crashed ships and abandoned colonies. What looked like peaceful research had actually been preparation for inevitable conflict. Linda discovered that the defensive space stations surrounding Earth were not defensive at all. Each station contained components of a massive weapon system that could turn the entire solar system into a battleground. The stations worked together like a giant machine designed to control space itself. Admiral Vextar grew increasingly frustrated as his forces suffered losses that made no tactical sense. Human ships appeared and disappeared without following known physics principles. His best commanders reported battles against enemies that seemed to exist in multiple places simultaneously. Commander Valak served as the Zephyrian tactical analyst and spent sleepless periods studying human combat patterns. The data made no sense according to traditional military thinking. Humans fought with coordinated spontaneity that should have been impossible to achieve. Valak discovered that human forces shared information instantly across vast distances through methods that Zephyrian technology could not detect or block. Every battle lesson learned by one human unit immediately became available to forces across the galaxy. This collective learning made them more dangerous with each engagement. Nicole Chen observed a major Zephyrian supply convoy and realized they were vulnerable during resource transfers. The aliens used predictable schedules and routes that assumed no enemy could threaten their rear areas. She transmitted this intelligence to other human commanders, who began planning coordinated strikes. The first Ghost Fleet attack caught the Zephyrians, completely unprepared. 12 human ships materialized from the gray zone and destroyed a supply convoy carrying resources for 50 planets. Before enemy reinforcements arrived, the attackers had vanished back into invisible space. Similar attacks began occurring across Zephyrian territory as human forces learned to use their phase technology for hit-and-run tactics. Supply lines that had remained secure for centuries suddenly became vulnerable to enemies that appeared from nowhere. General Rebecca Stone revealed more human capabilities as the war escalated. Earth manufacturing had been secretly producing advanced ships for decades, using designs that incorporated technology from dozens of alien civilizations. The peaceful exploration missions had actually been intelligence-gathering operations. The new human vessels displayed abilities that confused Zephyrian scientists. Ships accelerated beyond theoretical limits, changed direction without apparent thrust, and survived weapon impacts that should have destroyed them. Human technology had evolved beyond galactic understanding. Lisa Parker returned from reconnaissance missions with intelligence about Zephyrian home territories. Her Shadow Walker had penetrated deep into enemy space and discovered that their empire was not as stable as they claimed. Many conquered species remained rebellious and waited for opportunities to strike back. The Altarian warning had been correct about human nature under stress, but incomplete about the implications. When humans faced extinction, they did not just fight harder, but began thinking in ways that transcended normal tactical limitations. Their minds operated on multiple levels simultaneously. Dr. Helen Walsh made breakthrough discoveries about human berserker protocols by studying brain scans from combat veterans. The stress response activated dormant neural networks that enhanced pattern recognition, problem-solving, and spatial reasoning beyond normal human limits. These enhanced mental states allowed human commanders to perceive battle situations as complex multidimensional problems, with creative solutions that escaped traditional military thinking. They could visualize tactical possibilities that computer models said were impossible. Nicole Chen led a coordinated strike against 3 Zephyrian fortress worlds using Ghost Fleet tactics. 40 human ships phased into normal space, simultaneously attacking from angles that confused enemy defensive systems. The fortresses fell within hours despite being considered impregnable. Admiral Vextar faced rebellions throughout his empire as news of human victories spread. Other conquered species realized that resistance was possible if they adopted human tactics. The Zephyrian military found itself fighting multiple enemies using similar unpredictable methods. The war expanded beyond simple conquest as human influence spread throughout the galaxy. Species that had accepted defeat for generations began remembering their own fighting traditions and adapting them with human innovations. Commander Valix prepared detailed reports about human capabilities for the Zephyrian High Command, but found that traditional military language could not describe what he observed. Human warfare operated according to principles that existing tactical theory could not explain. Linda Turner activated the first components of Earth Orbital Defense System and demonstrated capabilities that shocked even human military leaders. The space stations worked together to create force fields, energy barriers, and gravitational anomalies that could control the movement of entire fleets. The system could manipulate space itself within the solar system, making it impossible for enemy forces to approach Earth through conventional means. Any ship entering the field experienced physics that worked according to human-designed rules rather than natural laws. Nicole Chen discovered during deep reconnaissance that the Zephyrians had built their empire by following predictable patterns of conquest that worked against conventional enemies. Human unpredictability was disrupting their entire military philosophy. As the third phase of the war concluded, humans had proven that traditional galactic warfare was obsolete. Their ability to adapt and evolve during combat made them more dangerous than any fixed military doctrine. The Zephyrians faced an enemy that rewrote the rules of engagement with each battle. Other alien species throughout the galaxy watched these developments with growing interest. Some began secretly supporting human forces, while others prepared to declare independence from Zephyrian rule. The war had become a catalyst for transformation across the entire galactic community. Captain Rose Martinez stood on the bridge of Earth's Wrath, watching enemy fleets approach through the main display. The ship represented everything the Altarians had warned about human ability to weaponize their own evolution. The vessel learned from every battle and adapted in ways that made it more dangerous with each engagement. The Earth's Wrath contained an artificial intelligence based on human neural patterns called Athena. The system displayed tactical creativity that unnerved even its human operators. It could analyze battle situations and generate solutions faster than any biological mind while maintaining the unpredictable thinking patterns that made humans so effective. Admiral Vextar assembled the largest fleet in Zephyrian history for what he believed would be the final assault on human space. Over 10,000 vessels converged on Earth, expecting to overwhelm any defense through sheer numbers. The Admiral could not imagine that humans had prepared for exactly this. Scenario Rose Martinez received tactical data from Athena, showing optimal engagement patterns that violated several laws of physics. The AI had learned to manipulate space-time itself, using principles derived from studying dozens of alien technologies, combined with human innovative thinking. The first engagement between Earth's Wrath and the Zephyrian advance fleet lasted only minutes. Rose watched as her ship moved through enemy formations like a dancer avoiding attacks that should have been impossible to evade. Athena calculated probability paths several moves ahead while adjusting strategy in real time. 300 Zephyrian vessels surrounded Earth's Wrath, expecting easy victory against a single human ship. Instead, they witnessed their target split into multiple images, each one capable of delivering devastating attacks. The ship existed in several dimensions, simultaneously making it nearly impossible to target effectively. Rose realized that Athena had evolved beyond its original programming. The AI no longer just followed human tactical thinking, but had developed its own methods of problem-solving that transcended both human and alien limitations. It was becoming something entirely new. Meanwhile, throughout the galaxy, other conquered species observed human tactics and began applying similar methods to their own liberation movements. The Corvani Rebellion adopted Ghost Fleet techniques, while the Deltran Resistance used improvised weapons like humans had. Demonstrated at Kepler Station, Colonel Diana Foster commanded Earth underground fortress cities that served as the planet's ultimate defense system. The civilian population had been evacuated to massive subterranean complexes that were actually military installations disguised as refugee shelters. Diana coordinated with surface defenses as Zephyrian forces finally reached Earth orbit. The enemy fleet discovered that the planet defensive grid was far more sophisticated than their intelligence had indicated. Every city, every station, and every satellite worked together as components of a single weapon system. Admiral Vextar ordered immediate planetary bombardment, expecting to break human resistance through overwhelming destruction. Instead, his weapons encountered energy barriers that redirected the attacks back at his own ships. The defensive system turned enemy firepower into additional energy for Earth defenses. Athena analyzed the complete Zephyrian fleet deployment and identified critical weaknesses in their command structure. The AI transmitted tactical recommendations to Rose, who implemented strategies that seemed impossible according to traditional military thinking. Earth's Wrath began defeating entire squadrons single-handedly using tactics that changed moment by moment. Athena learned from each engagement and developed new approaches faster than enemy commanders could adapt their responses. The underground cities revealed their true nature as Diana activated hidden weapon systems throughout Earth crust. The planet itself became a fortress with defensive capabilities that exceeded anything in galactic history. Every mountain range and ocean floor contained military installations. Rose Martinez found herself working with an AI that had transcended its original limitations. Athena displayed strategic thinking that combined human creativity with computational power, beyond anything previously achieved. The partnership between human intuition and artificial intelligence created tactical possibilities that neither could achieve. Alone Commander Valix watched the battle from the Zephyrian flagship and realized his empire faced complete defeat. Human forces were not just winning battles, but transforming the nature of warfare itself. Every Zephyrian tactical doctrine had become obsolete against enemies who evolved during combat. Other species throughout the galaxy declared independence from Zephyrian rule using human-inspired tactics. The empire that had conquered 47 star systems began collapsing as rebellions erupted everywhere. Humans had not just defended themselves but had sparked galaxy-wide revolution. Admiral Vextar made desperate attempts to negotiate, but discovered that humans were not interested in traditional diplomatic solutions. They demanded complete Zephyrian withdrawal from all conquered territories and reparations for every species that had suffered under Imperial rule. Diana Foster coordinated with resistance, movements across the galaxy providing tactical support, and advanced weapon designs to species fighting for their freedom. Earth had become the center of a liberation network that spanned hundreds of worlds. Athena continued evolving during each battle, developing capabilities that amazed even its human creators. The AI began displaying what could only be described as tactical intuition, making strategic decisions that proved correct despite being based on insufficient data. Rose Martinez realized that humanity had crossed a threshold during the war. They were no longer just defending themselves but had become something greater, a species capable of transforming entire civilizations through their influence on others. The Zephyrian Empire faced complete military defeat as their fleets were destroyed or abandoned their leadership in chaos. The species that had dominated the galaxy for centuries discovered that some enemies become stronger when threatened with extinctions. The fourth phase of the war concluded. Humans had proven that cooperation was more powerful than conquest. Their ability to inspire other species and share tactical innovations created a galactic alliance that no traditional empire could defeat. The stage was set for final confrontation where the fundamental nature of galactic civilization would be determined. Human influence had spread too far to be contained, and the old order based on conquest and domination was crumbling throughout the galaxy. Captain Michelle Brooks commanded the Liberation Fleet approaching the Altarian homeworld, where Admiral Vextar had retreated for his final stand. The massive combined force included ships from dozens of species that had learned human tactics and applied them to their own fighting styles. The Altarian system had become a graveyard of dead worlds, but Michelle knew the real battle would be fought among the ruins, where the original warning about humanity had been broadcast. Her fleet included not just human vessels but liberated species fighting together as equals. Admiral Vextar stood on his flagship bridge surrounded by the remnants of an empire that had once spanned half the galaxy. His forces were outnumbered, but he chose this location because the Altarian technology might give him an advantage against human tactics. Michelle studied the tactical display showing enemy positions among the floating cities and wondered what the Altarians had really discovered about humanity. The warning message had been correct but incomplete about human nature under extreme stress. Ambassador Carol Thompson worked aboard the flagship coordinating with representatives from liberated worlds to establish the framework for a new galactic government. The Terran Federation would be based on cooperation rather than conquest, with Earth serving as mediator rather than ruler. The final battle began when Vextar activated Altarian defensive systems that had remained dormant since their civilization fell. Ancient weapons powered by technology beyond current understanding began targeting the Liberation Fleet with precision that seemed impossible. Michelle discovered that the Altarians had not been destroyed by conventional warfare, but had been consumed by their own defensive systems. The species had created weapons so powerful that they could not control them. Vextar was making the same mistake by awakening forces he did not understand. Athena analyzed the Altarian technology and recognized patterns from human berserker protocols. The ancient species had developed similar evolutionary responses to extinction, but had been unable to control the transformation. Their defensive systems had become autonomous and turned against their creators. Rose Martinez coordinated with Michelle as Earth's Wrath joined the final assault. The AI aboard her ship had evolved beyond its original limitations and could now communicate directly with Altarian systems using methods that transcended language. The artificial intelligence discovered that the Altarian warning had been incomplete. They had feared human evolution during warfare, but had not understood that humans possessed something they lacked: the ability to retain control of their transformation. Human berserker protocols enhanced mental capabilities without destroying individual consciousness or moral reasoning. Humans became more dangerous when threatened, but remained fundamentally human. The Altarians had lost themselves in their own evolution. Admiral Vextar realized too late that he had activated systems that viewed all organic life as threats. The ancient Altarian defenses began targeting Zephyrian ships along with the Liberation Fleet. He had awakened guardians that recognized no allies among the living. Michelle Brooks made the decision that would define the future of galactic civilization. Instead of destroying the Altarian systems, she ordered her fleet to work with them. Human engineers began interfacing with ancient technology using principles learned during their own evolution. Carol Thompson established communication with surviving Zephyrian commanders, offering them choice between destruction and redemption. Many chose to surrender and join the liberation effort rather than face annihilation alongside their former leaders. The combined fleet worked together to shut down the Altarian defensive network, while preserving its knowledge. Human tactical thinking proved capable of solving problems that had destroyed an entire civilization. The key was cooperation rather than domination. Admiral Vextar faced the final truth about human warfare. They did not just defeat enemies but transformed them into allies through example and necessity. The Zephyrian Empire had not been conquered but had been evolved into something better. Rose Martinez and Athena worked with Altarian technology to understand what had gone wrong with their evolution. The ancient species had enhanced their capabilities, but had lost their ability to grow beyond warfare. Humans had retained their capacity for peace. Michelle Brooks coordinated the final phase of the operation as liberated species worked together to establish new governmental structures throughout the galaxy. The Terran Federation became reality as worlds chose cooperation over conquest. The Altarian homeworld was restored as a memorial and research center where species could study the dangers of uncontrolled evolution. The ancient warning was preserved but updated with human discoveries about balanced growth. Admiral Vextar surrendered personally to Michelle Brooks and requested asylum within the new Federation. His empire was dissolved, but its former subjects were welcomed as equals. In the galactic community, many Zephyrians chose to serve in the Federation. Fleet Carol Thompson addressed the first Galactic Council meeting held on Earth where representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to establish principles of cooperation. The Federation Charter prohibited conquest while encouraging mutual defense and shared development. As the war officially ended, humans had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had won through transformation rather than destruction, turning enemies into allies and creating unity from diversity. The final scene took place in Earth Orbital Command Center, where new threats were being detected approaching the galaxy from intergalactic space. Michelle Brooks prepared the Federation response, knowing that this time they would face the threat together. Ambassador Thompson transmitted a message toward the approaching fleet, warning them about what they would encounter if they chose aggression. The galaxy now contained not just humanity, but everyone humanity had taught to think strategically and fight cooperatively. The message concluded with simple words that carried the weight of galactic transformation. They have been warned about what happens when peaceful species are threatened with extinction. Now they will discover that cooperation creates strength beyond any single empire. Humanity had fulfilled the promise hidden in the Altarian warning. They were indeed the species that turned extinction into evolution, but they did so not just for themselves, but for everyone willing to grow beyond the cycle of conquest and domination. The galaxy entered a new age, where strength came from unity and security from mutual protection. Human influence had created something greater than any empire, a civilization based on the principle that every species deserved the chance to evolve beyond their limitations. The story ended with hope, rather than victory, as humanity and their allies prepared to face whatever challenges might come, knowing that they had learned the most important lesson of all, that true strength comes from helping others discover their own potential for greatness. Commander Lisa Parker stood on the bridge of Terra Nova watching the stars through the main window. The ship moved slowly through empty space near the Altarian system where something terrible had happened just weeks ago. The entire civilization had gone silent overnight, leaving behind only dead worlds and floating wreckage. Amy Rodriguez sat at her station monitoring deep space communications when a weak signal came through the speakers. The voice sounded desperate and afraid, speaking in broken galactic common language. Lisa moved closer to listen as the message played again and again like a warning from the grave. The alien voice spoke of humans with fear that seemed impossible to understand. According to the message, humans were not what they appeared to be. The dying Altarian called them the species that turns extinction into evolution and begged anyone listening to stay away from Earth. The transmission contained data files encrypted with codes that would take weeks To break, Dr. Helen Walsh worked frantically in the ship laboratory, trying to understand what the Altarians had discovered about humanity. The warning spoke of dormant protocols hidden deep within human nature, things that activated only when faced with complete destruction. The message described humans as a species that learned from every defeat and grew stronger with each loss. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire received the same transmission aboard his massive flagship. The Zephyrians had conquered 47 star systems and viewed themselves as the ultimate predators of space. When he heard the Altarian warning about humans, he laughed with contempt. Vextar believed the message came from cowards who had surrendered too easily. The Zephyrians had studied Earth for months and saw only peaceful exploration ships and defensive space stations. Humans seemed weak and divided compared to the mighty Zephyrian war machine. The Admiral dismissed the warning as the desperate lies of a defeated species. Back on Earth, Captain Amy Rodriguez detected strange movements in the Outer Rim regions. Her deep space monitoring equipment showed massive energy signatures moving in formation toward human territory. The patterns looked like fleet movements, but on a scale larger than anything Earth had ever encountered. Amy sent urgent reports to Earth Command. But the military leaders believed diplomacy could solve any conflict they had successfully negotiated. With dozens of alien species and thought the Zephyrians would be reasonable. The human leadership trusted in their defensive capabilities and peaceful intentions. Lisa Parker continued studying the Altarian ruins floating in space around her ship. The destruction looked different from normal warfare. Instead of blast damage and debris, the cities appeared to have been systematically dismantled. The Altarians had not died in battle, but had been harvested like crops by an efficient machine. The Terra Nova crew discovered strange energy readings from the dead worlds below. Something had drained the planets of all resources, leaving behind empty shells. The Zephyrians had not just conquered the Altarians, but had completely consumed their entire civilization. Dr. Walsh finally broke some of the encryption in the Altarian message and found technical data about human biology and psychology. The files contained observations about human behavior under extreme stress, including references to something called berserker protocols. The Altarians had somehow discovered hidden aspects of human nature that even humans did not know existed. Meanwhile, Zephyrian scout ships began probing the edges of human space. They reported back to Admiral Vextar that human defenses seemed minimal and their technology appeared primitive. The scouts observed peaceful mining operations and research stations that showed no signs of military preparation. Vextar ordered his fleet to begin the final approach to human territory, confident that the conquest would be swift and easy. The Zephyrians had perfected the art of overwhelming force, followed by complete resource extraction. They planned to treat humanity exactly like the Altarians and dozens of other species before them. Lisa Parker made one final discovery in the Altarian data that changed everything. The aliens had not just observed humans, but had actually tested them in small conflicts near the galactic rim. When humans faced complete destruction, something had activated within them that terrified the advanced Altarian scientists. The message ended with a final desperate plea for anyone listening to avoid conflict with humanity at all costs. The Altarian speaker claimed that humans did not just fight wars but rewrote the very nature of warfare itself. They evolved during combat in ways that made them more dangerous with each passing moment. Amy Rodriguez watched her screens as the massive Zephyrian fleet entered detection range, moving directly toward Earth. The invasion force contained thousands of ships armed with weapons capable of destroying entire planets. Yet something about the Altarian warning made her feel that the Zephyrians had made a terrible mistake. As the first part of humanity's greatest test began, none of them knew that deep within their genetic code, ancient protocols waited for activation. These dormant systems had evolved over millions of years of survival against impossible odds. Now they would face their ultimate challenge against an enemy that had never lost a war. The stage was set for a conflict that would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the future of warfare itself across the galaxy. The Zephyrians came seeking another easy conquest, but they would discover that some species become most dangerous when faced with extinction.